Grant, I can explain.
Explain this then.
How did it come to this? I only wanted one night of freedom, but instead, I came home to divorce papers served at my own front door. Can a single ultimatum really destroy everything, or was he always planning to turn my own game against me? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The kitchen felt suffocating that Tuesday evening. I stood at the granite counter, my phone buzzing with messages from my mom Lila, while Grant sat at our dining table, helping 6-year-old Sadie with her math homework. The domestic scene should have felt peaceful, but all I could think about was Joel's text from earlier. Missing you already? When can we meet again? Daddy, is 7 + 4 12? Sadie asked, her blonde pigtails bouncing as she looked up at Grant. Count it out on your fingers, sweetheart, Grant replied patiently, his dark hair falling across his forehead as he leaned closer to her worksheet. I watched them together and felt that familiar pang of guilt mixed with resentment. Grant was a good father. I couldn't deny that. But being a good father didn't make him a good husband. At 35, he'd settled into this comfortable routine that made me feel invisible. When was the last time he'd looked at me the way Joel did? When was the last time anyone made me feel desired, appreciated, alive? My phone buzzed again. A group text from my mom. Mireille, honey, you deserve a girl's night. Life's too short to be stuck at home every evening. I cleared my throat. Grant, I need to talk to you about something. He glanced up from Sadie's homework, his brown eyes tired from another long day at the accounting firm. What's up? My mom invited me for a girls' night tomorrow. Just us, some wine, maybe watch a movie. I was thinking I'd spend the night at her place, make it a real break. Grant's expression shifted slightly, a micro frown creasing his forehead. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Sadie has soccer practice Thursday morning. I have that early meeting with the Peterson account. So, you can handle one morning routine. I kept my voice light, but inside I was already preparing for battle. It's not like I'm asking to disappear for a week. I didn't say you couldn't go. I just think maybe you could come home after. Your mum's place is only 20 minutes away. There it was, the control, the subtle way he tried to manage every aspect of my life. I felt my jaw clench. Grant, I'm 32 years old. I think I can decide whether to spend one night at my mother's house. Sadie looked up from her math, sensing the tension. Are you going away, Mummy? Just for one night, baby. Daddy will take care of you. Grant stood up, moving closer to me. When he spoke, his voice was low, meant only for my ears. Mireille, is everything okay? You've been different lately. Distant. Different. Distant. If only he knew how different things had become since I'd started talking to Joel 3 weeks ago. The bartender at the Lantern had a way of making me feel like I mattered, like I was more than just Grant's wife and Sadie's mother. I'm fine, I said, louder than necessary. I just need some space, some time with my mom. Is that so unreasonable? No, it's not unreasonable. You just what? Don't trust me? Grant's eyes widened slightly. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. The way you're questioning this, like I'm asking permission to commit a crime. I was warming up now, finding my rhythm. This was familiar territory, turning his reasonable concerns into evidence of his controlling nature. My phone buzzed. Another text from Lila. Don't let him guilt you out of this, sweetheart. You need this. Look, I said, holding up my phone. My mum is excited about this. She's been looking forward to it all week. Are you really going to make me disappoint her because you can't handle one night alone with your own daughter? That's not fair, Mireille. You know that's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my husband doesn't want me to have any fun or freedom. Sadie's pencil stopped moving across her paper. She was listening to every word, her little face scrunched with worry. Grant noticed too. He took a deep breath, running his hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized as his attempt to stay calm. "Fine," he said quietly. "Go to your mom's. Have your girls' night." But something in his tone made me pause. There was a resignation there that I hadn't expected. Usually, our arguments ended with him trying to compromise, to find some middle ground. This felt different. "Really?" I asked. "Really, I'll handle the morning routine. Sadie and I will be fine." I should have felt victorious. I should have been happy that I'd gotten my way. Instead, I felt oddly unsettled by how easily he'd given in. "Thank you," I said, though the words felt strange in my mouth. Grant nodded and returned to Sadie's homework. 7 + 4 is 11, not 12, he said gently. "Try again." I went upstairs to pack an overnight bag, my hands shaking slightly as I folded a change of clothes. Tomorrow night, I'd be with Joel. We'd been texting constantly since that first night I'd stayed late at the Lantern, when he'd walked me to my car and kissed me under the parking lot lights. It had felt like being struck by lightning. Sudden, electric, dangerous. I told myself I deserved this. Grant and I had been growing apart for months. He worked late, came home exhausted, barely looked at me anymore. When was the last time he'd complimented me? When was the last time he'd made me feel beautiful? Joel made me feel beautiful. Joel made me feel alive. My phone rang. Grant's mother, Marion. "Hi, Marion," I answered, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Hello, dear. I was just calling to check on everyone." Grant sounded stressed when I talked to him earlier. Of course she was checking up on us. Marion had never quite approved of me, though she was too polite to say so directly. She had this way of asking innocent questions that felt like interrogations. "We're all fine," I said. "Just planning a little girls' night with my mum tomorrow." "Oh, how nice. Will you be out late?" "Actually, I'm planning to spend the night at Mum's place. Give Grant and Sadie some father-daughter time." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I see. Well, if Grant needs any help with Sadie in the morning, I'm happy to come over." "That won't be necessary. Grant can handle it." "Of course he can. I just thought, well, never mind. Have a lovely time with your mother." After she hung up, I stared at my phone. Even Grant's mother was questioning my plans. Was I being that obvious? Or were they all just naturally suspicious people? I finished packing and went back downstairs. Grant was reading Sadie a bedtime story in the living room, their heads close together over the picture book. For a moment, I felt a pang of something, regret, longing. But then my phone buzzed with another text from Joel. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow night." The feeling passed. That night, Grant and I lay in bed with careful space between us. The silence stretched until I couldn't stand it anymore. "Are you angry about tomorrow?" I asked. "No," he said, but he didn't turn toward me. "I'm not angry." "You seem angry." "I'm tired, Mireille. It's been a long day." Another silence. Then, "Grant." "Yeah? Do you still love me?" Now he did turn, propping himself up on his elbow to look at me in the darkness. "Of course I love you. Why would you ask that?" "I don't know. Sometimes it feels like we're just roommates, like we're going through the motions." He was quiet for so long I thought he might have fallen asleep. Finally he said, "Maybe we should talk to someone, a counselor." "Maybe," I agreed, though I had no intention of following through. How could I sit in a therapist's office and pretend to work on our marriage when I was already planning to spend tomorrow night in another man's arms? Grant rolled back over, and soon his breathing evened out into sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my phone hidden under my pillow, vibrating occasionally with messages from Joel. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. Wednesday dragged by like a prison sentence. I sat at my desk in the HR department, pretending to review employee files while texting back and forth with Joel. Every few minutes, I'd glance around the office to make sure no one was watching, then quickly type another message. What time should I meet you? I wrote. The Lantern closes at 2 a.m. on Wednesdays, but it gets quiet around 11. Come by then. My stomach fluttered with anticipation and guilt in equal measure. I'd told Grant I was going straight to my mum's after work. Instead, I'd be spending the evening at Joel's workplace, then going home with him. At lunch, I called my mum to coordinate our story. Mireille, honey, are you sure about this? Leela asked, though her tone suggested she was more excited than concerned. I mean, I'm happy to cover for you, but this seems risky. Mum, I need this. Grant and we're not connecting anymore. I feel like I'm disappearing in that house. I know, sweetheart. Your father was the same way toward the end. Men just don't understand what women need. My parents had divorced when I was 15. Lila had spent the years since then building a narrative about men's inability to appreciate strong women. It was a story that made my current situation feel justified, even inevitable. So you'll back me up if he calls? Of course. We're having a lovely girls' night, watching romantic comedies and drinking wine. Thanks, Mum. I love you. I love you too, baby. You deserve to be happy. The rest of the afternoon crawled by. I kept checking my phone, reading Joel's messages over and over. He was so different from Grant, spontaneous, flirtatious, full of life. When Joel looked at me, I felt like the most interesting woman in the world. At 5:30, I gathered my things and headed for the parking garage. My overnight bag sat in my trunk, packed with clothes I'd never wear to my mother's house. A black dress that hugged my curves, lacy underwear I'd bought specifically for tonight, perfume that made me feel dangerous. I drove home first, needing to maintain the illusion. Grant's car was already in the driveway. Through the kitchen window, I could see him helping Sadie with what looked like a science project. I'm home, I called, dropping my purse on the counter. Mommy, Sadie ran to me, her arms covered in what appeared to be glue and glitter. We're making a volcano. That's wonderful, baby. I hugged her carefully, trying not to get glitter on my work clothes. Are you excited for your special daddy daughter night? Yeah, Daddy said we can have ice cream for breakfast. I looked at Grant over Sadie's head. Ice cream for breakfast? He shrugged, almost smiling. It's a special occasion. For a moment, the guilt hit me like a physical blow. Here was my husband, planning a fun evening with our daughter, while I prepared to betray them both. But then I remembered all the nights he'd worked late, all the times he'd chosen his laptop over conversation with me, all the ways he'd made me feel invisible. I should get going, I said, checking my watch. Mum's expecting me by 7. Drive carefully, Grant said. He walked over and kissed my forehead, a brotherly gesture that reinforced everything I'd been telling myself about our dead marriage. I will. You two have fun with that volcano. I grabbed my overnight bag from the hall closet, where I'd hidden it that morning. Grant didn't seem to notice how heavy it was, or question why I needed so much stuff for one night at my mum's. Bye, Mummy, Sadie waved, her hand still covered in glitter. Bye, sweetheart. Be good for Daddy. I was almost to the door when Grant called my name. Mireille? My heart hammered against my ribs. Yeah? Have a good time. Thanks, I will. I drove to a coffee shop near the Lantern and sat in my car for 20 minutes, changing clothes and fixing my makeup. The black dress transformed me from suburban mom to someone entirely different, someone exciting, someone worth pursuing. The Lantern was busier than I'd expected for a Wednesday night. I found a seat at the bar and watched Joel work, admiring the confident way he mixed drinks and charmed customers. When he saw me, his face lit up with a smile that made my knees weak. Well, well, he said, leaning across the bar. Look who decided to grace us with her presence. Hi, I said, suddenly feeling shy. You look incredible. That dress. He shook his head appreciatively. Your husband's an idiot. The comment should have bothered me, but instead it sent a thrill through my system. Joel thought Grant was an idiot for not appreciating me. Joel saw what Grant couldn't see. What can I get you? He asked. Surprise me. He made me something with vodka and cranberry juice that tasted like liquid courage. We talked whenever he had breaks between customers, our conversation flowing easily from work complaints to childhood memories to dreams we'd given up on. Around 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed. A text from Grant. "Hope you're having fun with your mom. Sadie's volcano erupted successfully. Bedtime story in progress." I felt a stab of something, jealousy, sadness, at being excluded from this family moment. But then Joel touched my hand across the bar, and the feeling evaporated. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Perfect," I said, turning my phone face down. At 11, just as Joel had predicted, the crowd thinned out. He asked his co-worker to cover the bar and came around to sit beside me. "So," he said, his knee brushing against mine, "what's the plan? Are you really going to your mum's tonight?" I took a long sip of my drink, using the time to gather my courage. "That depends. Do you have a better offer?" His smile was answer enough. We left the lantern together at midnight, walking close enough that our shoulders touched. Joel's apartment was a 10-minute drive away, a studio in a converted warehouse that was nothing like the suburban home I shared with Grant. It was messy, artistic, alive with possibility. "This is really happening," I said, more to myself than to him. "Only if you want it to," Joel replied, but his hands were already on my waist, pulling me closer. I thought about Grant tucking Sadie into bed, probably wondering if I was having a good time with my mom. I thought about the trust in his eyes when he'd kissed my forehead goodbye. I thought about the life we'd built together, the promises we'd made. Then Joel kissed me, and I stopped thinking altogether. Later, lying in his unfamiliar bed, I sent a text to my mom. "Having a great time. See you in the morning." Then I sent one to Grant. "Mum and I are watching Pride and Prejudice for the 100th time. She's already crying. Going to bed soon. Love you." The lies came so easily it scared me. Joel was asleep beside me, one arm thrown across my waist. In the darkness, I could pretend this was my real life, that I was the kind of woman who lived in artistic apartments and had passionate affairs with bartenders. But my phone kept lighting up with notifications, tethering me to my actual existence. A text from Marion. "Grant mentioned you're at your mother's tonight. Hope you're having a lovely time." Another from Grant. "Sadie wants to know if you'll bring her something special from Grandma's house tomorrow." And one from my mom. "Hope your evening is going well, honey. Call me if you need anything." I turned the phone face down and tried to sleep, but guilt and exhilaration warred in my chest. What was I doing? What was I becoming? But when Joel stirred beside me and pulled me closer, whispering my name in his sleep, I pushed the questions away. I deserved this. I deserved to feel wanted, desired, alive. Grant had stopped seeing me years ago. Joel saw me clearly. That had to count for something. I woke up at dawn to my phone buzzing insistently. Grant was calling. "Hello," I whispered, slipping out of bed and into Joel's bathroom. "Hey, sorry to wake you. I know it's early." "It's fine. Is everything okay? Is Sadie all right?" "She's fine. She's still sleeping. I wanted to hear your voice." The simple honesty in his words hit me like a slap. Here I was, naked in another man's bathroom, while my husband called because he missed me. "That's sweet," I managed. "When are you coming home?" "I don't know. Mid-morning, maybe. Mom wants to make pancakes." Another lie, sliding off my tongue like it was nothing. "Okay. I love you, Mireille." "I love you too." I hung up and stared at myself in Joel's mirror. My hair was messy, my makeup smeared, my lips swollen from kisses that weren't my husband's. I looked like exactly what I was, a cheating wife. But I also looked alive in a way I hadn't in years. When I came out of the bathroom, Joel was awake, propped up on his elbow, and watching me with sleepy eyes. "Morning, beautiful. Everything okay?" "Grant called, just checking in." Joel's expression darkened slightly. "Does he always keep tabs on you like that?" "He's not keeping tabs. He was just—" I trailed off, realizing I was about to defend my husband to my lover. Never mind. Come back to bed, Joel said, patting the mattress beside him. But the spell was broken. Reality was creeping in around the edges of our fantasy, and I could feel the weight of what I'd done settling on my shoulders. I should go, I said. I need to stop by my mum's before I go home, make the story believable. Joel sat up, suddenly serious. Mireille, what are we doing here? What do you mean? I mean, where is this going? Because I like you, I really do, but I'm not looking to break up a family. The words stung more than they should have. I'm not asking you to break up my family. Aren't you? Because this can't go on forever. Eventually, someone's going to figure it out. I grabbed my clothes from the floor, suddenly desperate to get dressed, to get out of there. Let's not overthink this, okay? We're just having fun. If you say so. But as I drove to my mum's apartment to establish my alibi, I couldn't shake the feeling that Joel was already pulling away. And worse, I couldn't shake the memory of Grant's voice on the phone, telling me he loved me while I stood naked in another man's bathroom. What had I done? I spent exactly 47 minutes at my mum's apartment, long enough to mess up her guest bed and leave a few traces of my presence, short enough to avoid too many questions about my obviously guilty demeanor. You look different, Lila said, studying my face over her coffee cup. Different how? I don't know. Lighter, maybe. Like you've remembered who you are. If only she knew. I felt like I was fragmenting into multiple people. The wife who'd lied to her husband, the mother who'd abandoned her daughter for selfish pleasure, the woman who'd given herself to a man who was already having second thoughts. I should get home, I said, checking my phone. It was almost 10:30. Grant's probably wondering where I am. Let him wonder. Men need to appreciate what they have. I hugged my mom goodbye and drove home through suburban streets that looked different somehow, like I was seeing them through new eyes. Every house held families going about their normal Thursday morning routines, making breakfast, getting kids ready for school, living their honest lives. Grant's car was gone when I pulled into our driveway. He'd already left for his early meeting, after dropping Sadie at school. The house felt empty, echoing with the ghosts of last night's lies. I went upstairs and showered, scrubbing away Joel's scent and the evidence of my betrayal. But I couldn't wash away the memory of his hands on my skin, or the way he'd looked at me like I was the most fascinating woman alive. My phone buzzed. A text from Joel. Thanks for last night, you're amazing. I stared at the message for a long moment before responding. You too. It felt inadequate, but what else was there to say? Thanks for helping me cheat on my husband. Thanks for making me feel alive while I destroyed my marriage. Another text, this one from Grant. Meeting running long. Home by lunch. Hope you had a good time with your mum. The casual kindness in his message made my stomach twist with guilt. I typed back, great time. See you later. I spent the morning in a strange fugue state, going through the motions of normalcy while my mind replayed every moment of the previous night. I did laundry, including the black dress that now felt like evidence of a crime. I straightened the house, erasing any signs of the chaos I'd created in my own life. Around noon, I heard Grant's key in the front door. I'm home, he called. In the kitchen, I responded, trying to inject normal cheerfulness into my voice. He appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. He looked tired, older somehow than he had yesterday. How was your meeting? I asked. Long, complicated. The Peterson account is turning into a nightmare. He walked to the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of water. How was girls' night? Good. Really good. Mum and I stayed up way too late watching movies and gossiping. Grant nodded, but something in his expression made me uneasy. He was studying my face the same way Lila had, like he was looking for something specific. What did you watch? He asked. Pride and Prejudice. You know how Mum loves that movie. Right, you texted me about that. He took a long drink of water, still watching me. What else? What else what? What else did you watch? You said movies, plural. My mind went blank. I hadn't prepared for follow-up questions, hadn't thought through the details of my story. Oh, some romantic comedy. I can't remember the name. We were pretty wine-drunk by then. Grant nodded again, but the silence stretched uncomfortably. Are you okay? I asked. You seem off. I'm fine, just tired. He paused. Mireille, can I ask you something? My heart started hammering. Of course. Are you happy? In our marriage, I mean. Are you happy? The question caught me completely off guard. It was too close to the conversation I'd been having with myself all morning. Why would you ask that? I don't know. Lately, it feels like you're somewhere else. Even when you're here, you're not really here. I forced myself to look directly at him, to project innocence and mild hurt. Grant, that's not fair. I'm here. I'm present. I went to my mom's for one night, and suddenly, you think I'm checked out of our marriage? It's not about last night. It's about the last few months. The way you look at your phone constantly. The way you seem irritated by everything I do. The way you've been pulling away from me, from us. He was right, of course. I had been pulling away, but not for the reasons he thought. I'd been pulling away because I'd found something else. Someone else who made me feel the way Grant used to make me feel. Maybe you're the one who's checked out, I said, going on the offensive. When was the last time you really looked at me, Grant? When was the last time you made me feel like more than just the person who does your laundry and raises your daughter? That's not how I see you. Isn't it? Because from where I'm standing, it feels like I'm invisible in this house, like I'm just part of the furniture. Grant set down his water bottle and moved closer to me. Mireille, if you're unhappy, we can work on it. We can go to counseling. We can plan more date nights. I don't want to go to counseling, I snapped, more sharply than I'd intended. He stepped back, stung. Okay, what do you want? What I wanted was to feel the way I'd felt in Joel's arms. What I wanted was to be someone's first priority, someone's obsession. What I wanted was to matter. But I couldn't say any of that. I want you to stop analyzing everything I do. I want to be able to spend a night with my mother without getting the 3rd degree. I want some space to breathe. You want space. Yes, space. Freedom. The ability to make decisions about my own life without having to justify them to you. Grant was quiet for a long moment, studying my face with those careful brown eyes. Okay, he said finally. You can have space. Something in his tone made me look at him more closely. There was a resignation there that I recognized from our argument 2 nights ago, but also something else. Something that looked almost like relief. What's that supposed to mean? It means I hear you. You want space, you want freedom. I'm not going to fight you on it anymore. I should have felt victorious, but instead I felt oddly deflated. Where was the fight? Where was the passion? Even our arguments had become bloodless, mechanical. Good, I said, though the word felt hollow. Grant nodded and headed for the stairs. I'm going to change clothes and grab some lunch. Do you want anything? I'm not hungry. He paused at the bottom of the stairs. Mireille? Yeah? I do see you. I've always seen you. I'm sorry if I haven't made that clear. After he went upstairs, I sat at the kitchen table and put my head in my hands. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Grant was supposed to fight for me, to prove that he cared. Instead, he was giving me exactly what I'd asked for. Space. My phone buzzed. Another text from Joel. When can I see you again? I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the keyboard. Last night had been incredible, but it had also been a mistake. I could see that now, in the harsh light of day, sitting in the kitchen where my husband made our daughter breakfast every morning. But then I remembered the way Joel had looked at me, the way he'd made me feel beautiful and desired and alive. I remembered Grant's resigned acceptance of my need for space, his willingness to let me drift away without a fight. Soon, I typed back, I'll figure something out. The lie was getting easier to tell, even to myself. Upstairs, I could hear Grant moving around in our bedroom. Normal sounds, dresser drawers opening and closing, the closet door creaking, the sounds of a man going about his ordinary life, unaware that his wife was planning her next betrayal. I deleted Joel's messages and put my phone away. Tonight, I would make dinner and help Sadie with her homework and pretend to watch TV with Grant. I would play the role of wife and mother, while my mind wandered to a studio apartment across town, to hands that weren't my husband's, to a life that felt more real than the one I was actually living. But first, I had to figure out how to see Joel again without raising suspicion. The lying was becoming addictive, almost as thrilling as the affair itself. I was already planning my next deception. Sunday dinner at Marian's house was a monthly tradition I'd grown to dread. Grant's mother had a way of asking pointed questions disguised as polite conversation, and her house always felt like a museum where I was afraid to touch anything. This particular Sunday, 3 days after my night with Joel, I felt especially on edge. Grant had been distant since our kitchen conversation, polite but cool. He wasn't fighting me on my need for space, but he wasn't making it easy either. There was something in his eyes when he looked at me now, a watchfulness that made me paranoid. "Grandma Marian?" Sadie ran up the front steps ahead of us, her overnight bag bouncing against her legs. She was spending the night, another family tradition that usually gave Grant and me some rare alone time. "There's my beautiful granddaughter." Marian opened the door with genuine warmth that she rarely showed me. She was a handsome woman of 64, with silver hair always perfectly styled, and an air of quiet authority that came from 30 years as a high school principal. "Hi, Marian," I said, forcing a smile. "Mireille, you look tired, dear. Are you feeling all right?" And there it was, the first subtle dig disguised as concern. "I'm fine, just a busy week." Grant's older brother, Eli, was already there with his wife Carmen and their twin boys. The house buzzed with family energy that should have felt welcoming, but instead made me feel like an outsider looking in. "Uncle Grant!" The twins launched themselves at Grant, who scooped them both up with practiced ease. Watching him with the boys, I felt that familiar pang of something I couldn't quite name. Grant was good with children, patient, playful, present in a way he'd never quite learned to be with me. We gathered around Marian's dining room table, the good china and crystal reflecting the afternoon light streaming through lace curtains. It was a perfect domestic scene, the kind that belonged in a magazine spread about family values. "So, Mireille," Eli said as Marian carved the roast, "Grant mentioned you had a girls' night with your mum this week. How's Lila doing?" "She's great. We had a wonderful time." "What did you two get up to?" Carmen asked with genuine interest. "I'm so jealous. I can't remember the last time I had a whole night to myself." I launched into my rehearsed story about movies and wine and staying up too late gossiping. The lies came easily now, polished smooth by repetition. "That sounds lovely," Marian said, though something in her tone suggested she found it anything but. "It's so important for mothers to take time for themselves. Of course, it's also important not to take too much time away from family." Grant's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Mom, I'm just saying, balance is key in marriage. Your father and I never spent nights apart unless absolutely necessary. We believed that marriage meant choosing to be together, even when it was inconvenient." The criticism stung because it was delivered with such perfect politeness. Marian had mastered the art of the verbal slap disguised as wisdom. "Times were different then," I said, keeping my voice level. "Women weren't expected to lose themselves completely in marriage." "Oh, I don't think I lost myself. I think I found myself through partnership, through putting my family first." Eli cleared his throat uncomfortably. Carmen suddenly became very interested in cutting her meat. Even the twins seemed to sense the tension, their chatter dying down. "Different things work for different people," Grant said quietly. "Of course," Marian agreed, "though I do think some approaches are more successful than others. Look at the divorce statistics these days. All this focus on individual happiness instead of commitment. I felt my face flush. Are you suggesting that wanting some independence makes me selfish? Not at all, dear. I'm simply observing that marriage requires sacrifice from both partners. When one person starts prioritizing their own needs over the family's needs, she shrugged delicately, letting the implication hang in the air. Marion, I spent one night with my mother. One night in 6 years of marriage. If that threatens the foundation of my family, maybe the foundation wasn't very strong to begin with. The words came out sharper than I'd intended. Sadie looked up from her plate, her eyes wide with confusion. Mommy, are you mad at Grandma? No, sweetheart. Grandma and I are just having a grown-up conversation. But Grant was watching me with that same careful attention I'd noticed all week. Maybe we should change the subject. Good idea, Eli said quickly. Did everyone see the game yesterday? The conversation moved to safer territory, but the damage was done. I could feel Marion's disapproval radiating across the table like heat from a furnace. Worse, I could see the questions in Grant's eyes growing more pointed. After dinner, while the men watched football and the kids played in the backyard, I found myself trapped in the kitchen with Marion and Carmen, supposedly helping with dishes. Mireille, Marion said, handing me a plate to dry. I hope you didn't take offense at what I said earlier. I'm just concerned about Grant. Concerned about what exactly? He seems stressed lately, distracted. He's always been such a focused person, but recently, she shrugged. A mother notices these things. Carmen shot me a sympathetic look and excused herself to check on the twins. Smart woman. Grant's fine, I said. We're both fine. I'm sure you are. It's just that marriage can be so fragile, especially when there are outside pressures. What outside pressures? Marion turned to face me fully, her grey eyes sharp with intelligence. I don't know, dear. You tell me. The kitchen suddenly felt airless. Did she know something? Had she seen something? Or was this just her usual fishing expedition? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Because it seems to me that when a wife suddenly needs space and starts spending nights away from home, there might be something she's not telling her husband. My heart hammered against my ribs. Marion, I spent one night at my mother's house. If you want to turn that into some kind of marital crisis, that's your choice, but it's not reality. Isn't it? Then why does my son look like he hasn't slept in days? Why does he seem like he's walking on eggshells in his own home? Because he knows, I thought with sudden cold certainty. Somehow he knows. But I couldn't say that. Instead, I went on the attack. Maybe Grant seems stressed because his mother is constantly questioning his wife's motives and undermining his marriage. Maybe he's tired of having to defend me to his own family. Marion's eyebrows rose. Is that what he's been doing? Defending you? The question hit like a physical blow. Because the truth was, Grant hadn't been defending me. He'd been distant, watchful, resigned, like a man who'd already made up his mind about something. This conversation is over, I said, setting down the dish towel. I'm going to check on Sadie. I walked out of the kitchen on shaking legs, my mind racing. How much did Marion suspect? More importantly, how much did Grant know? I found him in the living room, supposedly watching the game, but actually staring at his phone with a frown. Everything okay? I asked, trying to sound casual. He looked up, and for a moment I saw something flicker across his face. Disappointment? Sadness? Then his expression smoothed into careful neutrality. Fine, just work stuff. But as I sat beside him on the couch, I noticed he angled his phone away from me. Grant, who'd never been secretive about anything in his life, was hiding something. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze of forced normalcy. We said goodbye to Sadie, who was staying overnight with Marion. We made polite conversation with Eli and Carmen. We thanked Marion for dinner and promised to call soon. But underneath it all, I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. Something had changed, and I was no longer sure I was controlling the narrative. On the drive home, Grant was quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of a long marriage, but the heavy silence of unspoken accusations. "Your mother was out of line today," I said finally. "Was she?" "You know she was. All that talk about sacrifice and commitment, like I'm some kind of selfish monster for wanting one night to myself." Grant pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. In the sudden silence, I could hear my own heartbeat. "Mireille," he said quietly, "is there something you want to tell me?" The question hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. This was my chance to come clean, to confess everything, and try to salvage what was left of our marriage. Instead, I doubled down on the lie. "Tell you what, that your mother has never liked me, and she's using this girls' night thing as an excuse to attack me. That she's trying to poison you against me." Grant studied my face for a long moment. Then he nodded, as if I'd confirmed something he'd already suspected. "Okay," he said. "Let's go inside." But as we walked to the front door, I caught him glancing at his phone again. And this time, I saw him delete a message before I could read it. My husband was keeping secrets too. The question was, which one of us would break first? The breaking point came on a Thursday night, 2 weeks after my confrontation with Marion. I'd managed to see Joel twice more, once during a supposed lunch with a co-worker, once during an evening work meeting that ran conveniently late. Each lie came easier than the last, but each encounter with Joel felt more desperate, more like I was grasping for something that was already slipping away. Joel was pulling back. I could feel it in the way he kissed me, distracted and mechanical. He'd started talking about keeping things light and not wanting to complicate anyone's life. Translation, he was getting cold feet about sleeping with a married woman. Meanwhile, Grant had become a stranger in his own house. He was polite, helpful with Sadie, punctual with household responsibilities. But he watched me with the careful attention of someone studying a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Worse, he'd started working late himself, coming home after Sadie's bedtime with explanations that felt rehearsed. That Thursday, everything came to a head. I was in the kitchen making dinner when my phone buzzed with a text from Joel. "Can't meet tomorrow. Maybe we should cool things off for a while." The message hit me like a slap. Cool things off? After everything I'd risked, everything I'd sacrificed, he wanted to cool things off? I was still staring at my phone when Grant walked in, earlier than usual. "You're home," I said, quickly putting the phone face down on the counter. "Meeting got cancelled." He loosened his tie, watching me with those careful eyes. "How was your day?" "Fine, boring. The usual." Grant nodded and went to the refrigerator for a beer. As he passed behind me, I felt him glance at my phone. The paranoia that had been building for weeks suddenly spiked. "Where's Sadie?" I asked. "Upstairs doing homework. She'll be down for dinner in a few minutes." We moved around each other in the kitchen like polite strangers, maintaining careful distance. The silence stretched until I couldn't stand it anymore. "Grant, we need to talk." He turned to face me, beer bottle halfway to his lips. "About what?" "About us. About whatever's been going on between us lately. This weird distance, this coldness. I thought you wanted space. I wanted some freedom, not to feel like I'm living with a roommate." Grant took a long drink of beer, studying me over the bottle. "What kind of freedom, Mireille?" The question felt loaded with meaning I didn't want to examine. Normal freedom. The ability to go out with friends, to have a life outside this house, to not feel like I have to account for every minute of my day. When have I ever made you account for every minute of your day? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. The questions, the looks, the way you analyze everything I do. Maybe I'm analyzing because things don't add up. My blood turned to ice water. What's that supposed to mean? Grant set down his beer and faced me fully. It means your stories don't always match the facts, Mireille. It means you're different lately. Distracted, secretive, defensive about things that shouldn't require defense. I'm not secretive. Aren't you? When was the last time you left your phone lying around? When was the last time you didn't angle it away from me when you were texting? I glanced involuntarily at my phone, still face down on the counter between us. That's paranoid, Grant. I'm not hiding anything. Then show me. What? Your phone. If you're not hiding anything, show me your messages. The request hit me like a physical blow. My phone contained weeks of conversations with Joel, flirtatious texts, planning messages, intimate exchanges that would destroy my marriage instantly. No, I said. Absolutely not. Why not? Because I have a right to privacy. Because demanding to see your spouse's phone is controlling and toxic, and I won't be treated like a criminal in my own home. Grant nodded slowly, as if I'd just confirmed his worst suspicions. Okay, he said. You're right. You have a right to privacy. The easy agreement should have felt like victory, but instead it terrified me. Grant never gave in that easily, not about something that mattered to him. Good, I said, though the word came out shaky. But I have a right to honesty, and lately I feel like I'm not getting that. Grant, let me finish. His voice was quiet but firm. I've been patient. I've tried to give you the space you asked for. I've tried to understand what you need, but I can't keep living like this, walking on eggshells, wondering what's really going on, feeling like a stranger in my own marriage. Panic rose in my chest. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading and secretly hoping for. Grant was finally going to fight for our marriage, except he wasn't fighting. He was retreating. What are you saying? I asked. I'm saying something has to change. Either we figure out how to be honest with each other, or we stop pretending this marriage is working. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Upstairs, I could hear Sadie's music playing, the innocent soundtrack of a child's life about to be shattered. Is that a threat? I asked. It's a reality check. We can't go on like this, Mireille. Whatever's happening here, whatever's changed between us, we need to address it honestly, or we need to admit that we're done. I felt cornered, trapped between my lies and his suspicions. Joel was pulling away, Grant was pulling away, and I was left grasping for control of a situation that was spiraling beyond my reach. So I did what I always did when I felt powerless. I went on the attack. Fine, I said, my voice rising. You want honesty? Here's honesty. I'm suffocating in this house. I'm disappearing piece by piece, day by day. I used to be interesting, Grant. I used to have dreams and ambitions, and a personality beyond wife and mother. But somewhere along the way, I became invisible. Even to myself. Mireille. No, you wanted honesty, so let me be honest. I need more than this. More than dinner conversations about your work and Sadie's homework. More than weekend trips to the grocery store and Sunday dinners with your mother. I need to feel alive again. Grant's face had gone very still. What does that mean exactly? It means I need freedom, real freedom. The ability to go out when I want, stay out as late as I want, spend the night somewhere else if I choose to. Without interrogation, without suspicion, without having to justify every decision to you. Spend the night somewhere else. Yes, with friends, with my mother, wherever I want. I'm an adult, Grant. I shouldn't need permission to live my life. Grant was quiet for a long moment, studying my face with an expression I couldn't read. And if I say no, he asked finally, then maybe we should consider whether this marriage is worth saving. The ultimatum hung between us like a blade. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross, made a threat I couldn't take back. Grant nodded slowly, as if I'd just answered a question he'd been asking himself for weeks. Okay, he said. Okay, what? Okay, I'll consider it. Then he walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with my racing heart and the terrible certainty that I'd just made a catastrophic mistake. That night, we lay in bed like two strangers, careful not to touch. I stared at the ceiling, replaying our conversation, wondering if I should apologize or double down, or just pretend it had never happened. Grant? I whispered into the darkness. Yeah? I don't want our marriage to end. Neither do I, he said quietly. But I can't keep living with someone who doesn't want to be here. I do want to be here, I need to know I'm choosing to be here, not trapped here. Grant was quiet for so long I thought he'd fallen asleep. Finally, he said, I've never tried to trap you, Mireille. If you want to leave, you can leave. You've always been free to leave. The words sent a chill through me, because suddenly I realized that leaving had never been what I wanted. What I'd wanted was for Grant to fight for me, to prove that I mattered enough to battle for. Instead, he was opening the door and stepping aside. I don't want to leave, I said. Then what do you want? The question echoed in the darkness, unanswered and unanswerable. Because the truth was, I didn't know what I wanted anymore. I'd thought I wanted Joel, but he was already pulling away. I'd thought I wanted freedom, but when Grant offered it to me, it felt like abandonment. What I wanted was to feel essential, irreplaceable, fought for. But I was beginning to understand that you can't demand those things. You can't manipulate someone into loving you the way you want to be loved. The next morning, Grant left for work without saying goodbye. I spent the day in a haze of anxiety, checking my phone obsessively for messages that didn't come. Joel didn't text. Grant didn't call. By evening, I was desperate enough to make the first move. I texted Joel, "We need to talk." His response came an hour later. "I think we've said everything we need to say." And just like that, my affair was over. Not with passion or drama, but with the quiet click of a door closing. I was still staring at Joel's final message when I heard a car in the driveway. Grant was home, earlier than usual again. I went to the window and saw him getting out of his car with a manila envelope in his hand. My blood turned to ice. He walked up to the front door with the measured pace of a man who'd made up his mind about something. When he came inside, he didn't call out his usual greeting. He just stood in the hallway, holding that envelope, looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. "Mireille," he said quietly, "we need to talk." And I knew with absolute certainty that my world was about to end. The envelope sat on our kitchen table, like a bomb waiting to explode. Grant stood across from me, his hands clasped behind his back, his face a mask of calm determination that terrified me more than anger would have. "What is that?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "Divorce papers," Grant said simply. "I filed this morning." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually staggered backward, gripping the counter for support. "You what?" "You said I should consider whether this marriage is worth saving. I considered it. I decided it isn't." "Grant, no. You can't be serious. We had one fight." "We didn't have one fight, Mireille. We've been having the same fight for months, in different variations, and I'm done." I stared at him, searching his face for some sign of the man I'd married. This cold, decisive stranger couldn't be my husband. The man who deliberated for 20 minutes before choosing a restaurant, who agonized over every major decision. You can't just file for divorce without talking to me first. I tried talking to you. You gave me an ultimatum instead, so I made my choice. My mind raced, trying to process what was happening. "Grant, please, let's sit down and discuss this rationally. We can work through whatever problems we're having. We can go to counseling. We can we?" Grant pulled out a chair and sat down, his movements deliberate and controlled. "Because it seems to me that you've already worked through your problems, just not with me." The way he said it made my blood freeze. "What do you mean?" Grant reached into his jacket and pulled out a second folder, this one thicker than the first. He opened it and spread several photographs across the table. My knees gave out. I collapsed into the chair across from him, staring at images that destroyed any possibility of denial. There I was, walking into the lantern. There I was, leaving with Joel. There I was, kissing him in the parking lot of his apartment building. "How did you—" "Private investigator. I hired him 3 weeks ago, after your second work meeting that ran until midnight." I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Grant, I can explain. Can you? Because I'd love to hear how you explain this. He slid another photograph across the table. This one showed me leaving Joel's apartment building the morning after my supposed girls' night with my mother. Or this, bank statements showing cash withdrawals I'd used to pay for drinks at the Lantern. Or this, phone records showing dozens of calls and texts to Joel's number. Or this, a printed screenshot of text messages between Joel and me, messages I thought had been deleted, messages that laid out our affair in explicit detail. I stared at the evidence of my betrayal spread across our kitchen table like crime scene photos. Every lie I'd told, every deception I'd crafted, every moment I'd thought I was being clever, it was all there, documented with clinical precision. "How long have you known?" I whispered. "I suspected something after that first night you stayed at your mother's. You were different when you came home, guilty, defensive, jumpy, so I started paying attention. The phone calls to your mum, the late meetings, you were planning this?" Grant nodded. I was gathering evidence, making sure I had everything I needed to protect Sadie and myself. Protect yourself from what? From me? From the lies, from the manipulation, from whatever story you were going to tell when this all came out. I looked at the photographs again, seeing myself through Grant's eyes, a cheating wife, a liar, a woman who'd betrayed everything they'd built together. "Grant, please, it's over with him. It meant nothing. It was just what? A mistake? A moment of weakness?" Because these phone records showed dozens of conversations over several weeks. This wasn't a mistake, Mireille. This was a choice. Multiple choices. Tears were streaming down my face now, but Grant's expression remained unmoved. "I was unhappy," I said desperately. "I felt invisible, unappreciated. I needed to feel wanted, desired. So you decided to blow up our family." "No, I never wanted to hurt you or Sadie. I needed something for myself." Grant leaned back in his chair, studying me with those careful brown eyes. "Did you think about Sadie when you were with him? Did you think about what this would do to her?" The question hit me like a slap, because the truth was, I hadn't thought about Sadie. I'd been so focused on my own needs, my own desires, that I'd forgotten about the innocent child who would be destroyed by my choices. "Of course I thought about her," I lied. "Did you? Because it seems to me that you thought about yourself, your happiness, your needs, your freedom. Everyone else was just collateral damage." I wiped my eyes with shaking hands. "What do you want from me, Grant? You want me to grovel? You want me to beg? I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." "You can't fix this." The finality in his voice was like a door slamming shut. "There has to be something." "There isn't. I'm done, Mireille. I'm done with the lies, done with the manipulation, done with wondering what's real and what's performance. I'm done being married to someone who sees our family as a prison instead of a gift." I stared at him across the table, this man I'd shared a bed with for 6 years, and realized I was looking at a stranger. The Grant I'd married would have fought for us. He would have demanded counseling, insisted on working through our problems, refused to give up. This Grant had already given up. Worse, he'd given up quietly, methodically, with lawyers and private investigators and documented evidence. "What about Sadie?" I asked. "What about her?" "She needs both her parents. You can't just tear apart her family because you're angry with me." Grant's jaw tightened, the first real emotion I'd seen from him all evening. "I'm not tearing apart her family. You did that when you decided to have an affair. I'm just making it official." "Grant, please." "I've already talked to my lawyer about custody. I'm asking for primary physical custody, with supervised visitation for you initially." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Supervised visitation? You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. You've demonstrated poor judgment and a willingness to lie to the people who trust you most. Until you can prove that you're stable and trustworthy, I don't think you should have unsupervised access to our daughter. She's my daughter too. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to sneak around with a bartender. I felt the ground crumbling beneath my feet. Not only was I losing my husband, I was losing my child. This is insane. You're being vindictive and cruel. I'm being protective. There's a difference. Grant gathered up the photographs and documents, sliding them back into their folders with business-like efficiency. You have 30 days to respond to the divorce petition. I'd recommend getting your own lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. You'll figure it out. You're good at figuring things out when you need something. The casual cruelty of the comment took my breath away. This wasn't the man I'd married. This was someone harder, colder, more calculating. Where am I supposed to go? I asked. That's not my problem anymore. But you have until the end of the week to find somewhere else to live. I've already talked to Sadie about the separation. You told her without me. I told her that Mommy and Daddy are having some problems and need to live apart for a while. I didn't tell her that Mommy was cheating with a bartender, if that's what you're worried about. I put my head in my hands, overwhelmed by the speed at which my life was disintegrating. This is really happening, I whispered. Yes, it's really happening. I looked up at Grant one last time, searching for any sign of the man who'd once loved me enough to propose, to marry me, to build a life with me. Did you ever love me? I asked. For the first time all evening, Grant's mask slipped slightly. I saw a flash of something, pain, maybe, or regret. I loved you more than anything, he said quietly. I would have done anything for you, given you anything you needed. All you had to do was talk to me, be honest with me, work with me instead of against me. I can still do that. We can still... No, we can't, because I don't trust you anymore, and I never will again. And without trust, there's nothing left to build on. Grant stood up, gathering his folders. I'll be staying at Eli's tonight. You can have the house until Friday to pack your things and figure out your next move. He walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. For what it's worth, Mireille, I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I hope it was worth destroying our family. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the divorce papers and the wreckage of my marriage. I sat there for a long time, staring at the legal documents that would end my life as I knew it. Everything I'd thought I wanted, freedom, excitement, passion, had evaporated the moment I'd seen those photographs. What I was left with was the truth. I'd gambled everything for a fantasy, and I'd lost. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. How are things going, honey? I stared at the message, then typed back, Grant filed for divorce. It's over. Her response came immediately. Oh my God, what happened? But I couldn't bring myself to explain. Couldn't admit that I'd destroyed my marriage for a man who'd already moved on. That I'd sacrificed my family for a few weeks of feeling desired. Instead, I turned off my phone and went upstairs to pack. 3 hours later, I stood in the driveway with 2 suitcases and nowhere to go. The house, our house, the home where we'd planned to raise our daughter, looked like a stranger's place now. I got in my car and drove to my mother's apartment, the divorce papers on the passenger seat beside me. In the rearview mirror, I watched our house disappear into the darkness. By the time I reached Lila's place, the reality had finally sunk in. I wasn't a wife anymore. I wasn't a full-time mother. I was a 32-year-old woman who'd thrown away everything that mattered for a fantasy that had lasted less than a month. Grant had won, not through anger or vengeance, but through patience, preparation, and the simple power of truth. And I had no one to blame but myself.